Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, stack up the sources, and really pull out the key insights for you.
Glad to be here.
Today we're diving into something really critical, right at the heart of medical device safety. We're looking at a recent and very serious Class 1 recall.
That's right. It involves ventilators from Medtronic, specifically their Newport HT70 and HT70 Plus models.
And this recall, announced June 2025, it's Class 1, the most serious type.
Exactly. The core problem, these ventilators could unexpectedly shut down without sounding an alarm.
Wow. Yeah, for a life support device like a ventilator, that's about as serious as it gets. A direct risk to patients.
Absolutely profound risk.
And our goal here isn't just to, report the headline. For this deep dive, we really wanted to understand what happened, why it happened, and crucially for you, our listener, especially those of you in quality, regulatory, risk, what can we learn from this?
What are the takeaways for improving how we handle device quality, regulatory oversight, risk management going forward? This is a case study with potentially systemic implications.
So we started with some key questions guiding our analysis.
Yeah, questions like, were there early signals? Could we have seen this coming if we looked at public data sooner?
And how were patient injuries actually recorded? Or maybe how are they missed in the official reporting?
Right. And did the company, Medtronic in this case, respond differently to similar issues across different devices in their portfolio?
What other factors, maybe strategic or operational things, might have played a role in how this all unfolded?
To answer those, we went straight to the source material. Primarily, the FDA's MAUDE database, that's MAUDE, pronounced MAUDE. We looked at over a decade of adverse event reports.
And the official recall notices, of course. But, and this is key for this deep dive, we didn't just focus on the HT70.
No, we expanded the analysis. We brought in another Medtronic ventilator recall, one that looks similar on the surface, for comparison. We'll definitely get into why that comparison turned out to be so revealing later on.
Okay, so let's start by unpacking the HT70 recall itself. First, maybe set the scene. What is the Newport HT70?
Sure. The Newport HT70 and the Plus model, they're portable ventilators. Turbine-driven, used for adults, used for kids. You see them a lot in patient transport, home care settings, subacute facilities.
So versatility is a big feature. Battery power, mobility.
Exactly. Made them popular choices when patients needed to move, even outside the hospital sometimes.
But the problem leading to this Class 1 recall, that specific issue,
was unexpected shutdowns, and the investigation linked it to capacitor degradation. Over time, these components were failing.
And the critical part, again, no alarm. The device could just stop silently.
A terrifying prospect for anyone relying on it.
So you dove into the MAUDE data for the HT70. What did that involve? How much data are we talking about?
A lot. We analyzed 2,128 UAE reports specifically for the HT70, spanning from 2013 right through to 2025.
Okay, and how did you approach analyzing that volume? It's not just counting numbers, right?
No, definitely not. That's the crucial methodological point here. We didn't just rely on the structured fields, the check boxes for injury or death.
Which can be limiting.
Very limiting. We use structured coding, yes, but the real heavy lifting involved narrative-based inference. We read the free text descriptions in basically every single report.
Looking for keywords, classifying failure modes.
Exactly, and paying really close attention to reports coded simply as malfunction, because often the story of patient harm was hidden in that text, not in the official code.
That sounds like painstaking work, but essential for getting the true picture.
It really is. For regulatory and quality pros listening, this is where the gold often lies in those narratives.
So what did this deep dive, this narrative review actually uncover? Were there early signs?
Absolutely. And this is maybe the first major takeaway, capacitor-related problems. They were visible in the adverse event data up to 5 years before the 2025 recall.
5 years. Wow.
Ooh, yeah. We saw a clear escalating trend starting around 2020. It wasn't hidden exactly, but it was a slow burn.
Interesting. Was there anything to compare that to, like other issues with the same device?
Well, yeah, interestingly, there was an earlier HT70 recall back in 2017. That one was for software resets.
Okay.
And our analysis showed that Medtronic addressed that software issue pretty effectively with an update. Reports dropped off sharply afterwards.
Suggesting maybe a quicker, more effective response to that software glitch compared to the hardware degradation?
It certainly looks that way. The response to the hardware issue seems, slower, less decisive, until the eventual recall and removal.
Okay, let's talk about patient harm. You mentioned looking beyond the official codes. What did you find there?
This is really critical. So the MAUDE data for the HT70 had 230 reports explicitly coded as injury and 2 coded as death. But there were a staggering 1,796 reports coded just as malfunction.
Merely 1,800 malfunction.
Right. And when we read through the narratives of those malfunction reports, we found clear evidence of patient harm. Things like the patient becoming unresponsive, oxygen levels dropping, needing emergency manual ventilation.
Events that sound very much like injuries, even if they weren't coded that way.
Exactly. We conservatively estimate, based on that narrative review, that there were probably 20 to 30 additional injury events buried in those malfunction reports.
Can you give example? Sometimes a specific story makes it clearer.
Sure. There's one report, HT70 005, from back in August 2013. The narrative says, quote, "During patient transport, the ventilator shut down, and the patient was found to be unresponsive. Emergency manual ventilation was performed."
Okay, that sounds incredibly serious, life-threatening.
Absolutely. But in the structured MAUDE data, that event was not coded as an injury.
It just highlights how much you can miss if you only look at the checkboxes, doesn't it?
It really does. This pattern of underestimating harm in the structured data, it became a really significant theme we saw again and again.
So the HT70 story is one of a slow-burning hardware issue, signals present years before action, and likely underreported harm. That naturally leads to the question, is this unique to the HT70 or is it a wider pattern?
Precisely. That's exactly why we broadened the scope. We asked, is this a one-off, or does it reflect something more systemic within, say, Medtronic's respiratory division?
And that's where the Puritan Bennett 980 ventilator comes in, the PB980.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why the PB980? Well, it wasn't just some random ventilator. It was also subject to a Class 1 recall back in 2021.
Okay.
And guess what the cause was? Capacitor-related failures potentially leading to shutdown.
The same underlying issue as the HT70 recall.
Pretty much the same root cause category.
Okay.
And critically, both the HT70 and the PB980 fall under the same FDA product code, CBK.
Wow. Same company portfolio, same product code, similar Class 1 recall reason.
Yeah.
That comparison suddenly seems essential.
Absolutely essential. It lets you look for patterns in how similar issues are handled across different contexts.
So tell us about the PB980. How does it differ from the HT70?
Oh, it's quite a different beast. The PB980 is a high-acuity ICU-grade ventilator. Think sophisticated hospital workhorse, not portable transport.
More advanced features
Yeah.
integrated into the hospital setting.
Definitely. Features like proportional assist ventilation. It was launched as Medtronic's flagship critical care ventilator. And importantly, it played a huge role during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Ah, right. Demand for ICU ventilators spiked then.
Massively. Medtronic saw something like a 4-fold increase in PB980 sales in their fiscal year 2021. So it had a very high profile internally and externally.
So different use cases. HT70 more portable, home care, transport. PB980 is the ICU flagship. But they share this capacitor vulnerability.
Correct.
What did the data look like for the PB980 recall?
Fewer reports overall compared to the HT70. We analyzed 144 MAUDE reports for the PB980 between 2019 and 2024.
Still significant, though.
Oh, absolutely. And what was striking here was the clarity of the signal, the capacitor-related shutdowns. They were really concentrated in 2020 and 2021.
It's a sharper spike, maybe.
Exactly, which seemed to lead to a more timely recall in 2021 compared to the long, slow burn we saw with the HT70 capacitor issue. Fewer reports, maybe,
Yep.
but the signal itself was arguably louder, or at least more concentrated.
Why do you think that might be? Just the timing or maybe the setting?
It could be a combination. The sudden concentration of events makes a signal pop. Plus, the PB980 is used in high-acuity ICUs, maybe more intensive monitoring, quicker reporting of failures. Hard to say for sure, but the pattern was different.
Any narrative examples from the PB980 data that stand out?
Yeah, there's one, PB980-005 from March 2019. The narrative says, while in use on a patient, the ventilator shut down with a breath delivery alarm. There was a burning smell. And then it notes multimeter testing confirmed a blown C10 capacitor and damage to the circuit board.
Very specific. Directly linking the failure mode to the component cited in the later recall.
Precisely. A clear, direct signal. And just to reinforce that point about hidden harm, even with the PB980, we found 7 reports coded as malfunction, where the narrative strongly implied patient harm.
Like needing manual ventilation again or oxygen levels dropping.
Yes, exactly those kinds of events. So that pattern of underreporting in the structured fields, it was consistent across both devices.
Okay, so now we have these two parallel stories, HT70 and PB980. Similar root cause for recalls, same product code, same company, but different devices, different timelines, well, let's get into it, different responses, right?
This is where the comparative insights become really fascinating and, frankly, quite telling.
Let's compare them side by side. Signal patterns first.
Right, HT70. Capacitor issue signals emerge slowly, over years, escalating gradually. PB980. Similar capacitor issue, but the signals cluster much more tightly in 2020, 2021, leading to quicker action.
So the way the signal emerges matters for visibility and response time.
It seems so. A slow creep might be harder to recognize or harder to act decisively on compared to a sudden surge, even if the root cause is similar.
And the classification of harm.
Consistent problem across both. Significant patient harm buried in malfunction narratives, not captured by the structured injury or death fields.
Which raises that huge question for the industry. How much harm are we actually missing globally if we just rely on those structured fields? It's unsettling.
It is. The volume of malfunction reports with implied harm for both devices suggests the official numbers might significantly understate the true clinical impact.
Now, the organizational response. This seems to be the biggest point of divergence.
Absolutely striking. Let's recap. HT70 software recall in 2017. They issued a fix, device stayed in use. HT70 capacitor recall in 2025. The action was removal from clinical use. Full stop. No public commitment to ongoing support or repair.
Okay. And the PB980 capacitor recall in 2021.
A completely different approach. Medtronic initiated lot-specific repair and replacement for the affected components. And crucially, they committed to supporting the PB980 device through at least 2034.
Wow. So for a similar technical issue capacitor failure, one device gets pulled from the market, the other gets repaired in long-term support.
Exactly.
That really points towards factors beyond just the technical risk, doesn't it? It smells like strategic positioning.
I think that's a very strong inference from the data and the outcomes. Remember the context. PB980 was the flagship, critical during COVID, sales booming, high strategic value.
Boy, HT70.
Older device, acquired via acquisition, Newport Medical, less visible and not part of that big pandemic narrative. It seems its strategic importance within the portfolio was lower.
And ultimately, it was phased out rather than fixed.
That's the outcome. It strongly suggests that a product's strategic status, its place in the company's portfolio and market plans, can significantly influence how risks are managed and how recall actions are executed.
Which is a profound point. Business strategy intersecting with patient safety outcomes.
It shows that safety decisions aren't always made in a purely technical vacuum. Market dynamics, life cycle stage, strategic importance, these factors clearly play a role.
A powerful reminder that device safety is intertwined with organizational focus and business decisions.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's distill this down. For the quality, regulatory, risk professionals listening, what are the key lessons learned from this whole deep dive?
We've pulled out several critical takeaways. First, early signals often need active interpretation. They're there in the data, like MAUDE, but might be hidden in narratives or miscoded.
So your takeaway, proactive surveillance has got to include reading those narratives, looking for trends, triangulating signal, don't just count the coded injuries.
Precisely. Second, software failures and hardware failures behave differently, and your surveillance needs to account for that.
Right, the HT70 software fix was quick. The capacitor degradation was a slow burn, much harder to address once widespread.
Yeah. So, for you, develop distinct strategies for monitoring these slow burn hardware issues. They need long-term vigilance.
Third takeaway, and we've hit this hard, structured fields underestimate patient harm.
Unequivocally, relying only on injury or death codes, you'll miss a huge chunk of clinically significant events.
Your takeaway, narrative text is absolutely essential to grasp the true clinical impact and safety profile. You have to read the stories.
Fourth, organizational priorities shape risk response. This is maybe the most strategically insightful point.
The PB980 got support because it was strategically vital. The HT70, older and less central, was removed.
It shows that post-market safety outcomes aren't just about technical severity. Corporate priorities, life cycle planning, they matter deeply. That's a reality you need to understand and potentially navigate in your own organization.
And finally,
comparative analysis is powerful. Looking across devices, like we did with HT70 and PB980 under the same product code, reveals systemic gaps or inconsistencies you might miss otherwise.
So, for you, try doing cross-device, cross-recall analysis within your own company. It can uncover blind spots and opportunities for systemic improvements in risk management.
Now, we do need to acknowledge the limitations here.
Right, important caveat.
Our analysis is based on MAUDE data, which is public but has known limitations. Reporting is voluntary. There's potential for bias, miscoding, underreporting things our analysis actually highlighted.
And we don't have access to Medtronic's internal decision-making, emails, meeting minutes.
Exactly. So MAUDE is a powerful lens, incredibly valuable, but it doesn't show the entire internal picture.
Understood. So bringing it all together, this deep dive really underscores that device safety isn't just ticking techno boxes. It's deeply influenced by organizational strategy, market factors, how data is interpreted, a complex interplay.
It truly is.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you, our listener, to consider.
As a quality, regulatory, or risk professional, how can you better leverage narrative data in your surveillance?
How can you champion comparative analysis across your own company's products to find those hidden patterns?
And maybe most challenging, how can you advocate effectively for patient safety in a way that truly influences organizational priorities, especially when you're up against market pressures or tough product lifecycle decisions?
Something to definitely mull over. Your critical thinking, your vigilance in these complex situations, it's never been more important.